A good vach, a good week. We'll start now learning the first written Maamar of the Rebbe Rashab. In the year Tafresh Mem Gimel, the fall of 1882, the Rebbe Maharash, his father, the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe, passed away. And the Rebbe Rashab was then a very young man, talking about 21, and he started saying Maamar. He started on Sukkot with the Maamar Keser Yitnu L'cha, which was a few days after the passing. And that Maamar right now we do not have, and it's not printed in that Sefer Maamarim. The first Maamar that we have printed is VaYomer talking about the generation of the Tower of Babylon and the disbursement. Just by way of history, when the Rebbe Maharash had passed away on Yud Gimel Tishrei, 2 days before Sukkot, right before Erev Yantav, basically. And in fact, it's brought down that years before, about over 15 years before, when the Tzemach Tzedek passed away, for 6 months he called the Rebbe Maharash to him, and the Rebbe Maharash would sit there and even showed a smile on his face, but then he would go home and he would cry bitter cries, and he knew that the Tzemach Tzedek, his father, was telling him that the Tzemach Tzedek was about to pass away, and he was preparing the Rebbe Maharash to take over. And of course he passed away on Yud Gimel Tishrei, on the 13th of Tishrei, 2 days before Pesach, and he said that we have a day in common. And of course the Rebbe Rashab also passed away in Tafresh Mem Gimel in 1882, 2 days before Sukkot, also on Yud Gimel, but Yud Gimel Tishrei. And this and Tishrei are connected. The fact also, you could say that the Tzemach Tzedek was calling in the Rebbe Maharash 6 months before his passing, means he started calling him in on Yud Gimel Tishrei, or around then, which would eventually be his yahrzeit. This Maamar is the first written Maamar and is said a few weeks after the passing of the Rebbe Maharash, and it's based on a Maamar of the Rebbe Maharash, which was said 13 years before in Tafresh Lamed, around 1870. We'll now learn inside, and it talks about the generation of the disbursement. And it should be brought out an interesting thing. It says that the generation of the disbursement, that they in a way had a second chance. They came back as the generation that left Egypt. And that generation comes back as the generation that leaves the exile, and as we see from Tanakh, from what our sages tell us in the end of Tractate Sota, and from every sign that there is, if you want to look at from historical signs, technological signs, that this is this generation, that this is the generation that's going out of the final exile and into the final redemption. And so too, Noach has a special role in this. Noach was not here the first time as Noach, and Noach was not here the last time as Noach. Noach is a reincarnation that's brought down of Hevel, of Abel. Abel was not able to finish his job. He was killed, and therefore he came back as Noach. Noach saved the world and saved all future generations, but he wasn't able to save his own generation, so he came back as Moshe Rabbeinu, as Moses. And Moshe Rabbeinu was called Moshe Rabbeinu because throughout the ages he is our teacher. He's the one who gives us the Torah, and every leader of the generation, there's one leader per generation, and that leader has a spark of Moshe. And what does it say about Moshe? That when Moshiach comes, that the final Moshiach is going to be Moshe himself, meaning a reincarnation of Moshe. So the generation of the disbursement is connected with the generation of Moshiach, and Noach is connected with Moshiach as a different level of the soul. Let's look in. Hashem says these are one nation. There were no 70 nations then. There was one group of people. And they had one language. And what does it mean that they had one language? Everyone then spoke Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue. And not just that, but you find in last week's Parsha when other Magician called the different animals by their names, that this was a praise to other Magician. Why? An ox passes him and he calls it an ox and finished. So the answer is that there are 22 different emanations, 22 godly powers with which Hashem creates the world. And these 22 powers are symbolized by letters, and in fact there's a deeper meaning to that. These are the letters with which Hashem speaks, with which Hashem gives energy to make certain things, and to make all things. So, other Merishin saw the ox, and he saw that this is the final end result of Hashem coming out in the type of energy symbolized or harnessed by the letter Shin, and that therefore the first letter of his name should be with a Shin, and that the secondary life force within this ox was symbolized by the Vav and comes through the letter Vav, comes through Hashem coming into the letter Vav, and the tertiary, the third level of life force was the Reish, was Hashem coming out into the letter Reish, and together that makes Sher. And you could say the same about the Nekudes, the pronunciation. It's Sher, not Shur, or Shora. It's Sher. And he saw that this is the way that these letters symbolize the way that this ox was made. And the name of everything in Lashon HaKodesh, in the Holy Tongue, is the direct way with which that being is made. And so to a person's name in Lashon HaKodesh has to do with their neshama, with their life's mission. And these people then only spoke that language. So their connection and recognition of divine power was more, but they didn't use it right, and they didn't care to follow Hashem. And this is what they want to do with it. They want to come together to make a tower with which they said that they would be invincible, and they wanted to go up there to make war against Hashem. So Hashem said, enough of this, it's not good for people. And he split them up into different groups, and he split up their language, and they had less of a direct connection. They didn't have Lashon HaKodesh anymore. And therefore anything they want to do, they're going to try to do. And therefore Hashem splits up the languages. So Rav Chaim Vital writes in his Likutei Torah. There's a Likutei Torah from the Alter Rebbe that we know, but Rav Chaim Vital also wrote a Likutei Torah on Parshas Noach. What does it mean that they can't be stopped? They'll be able to do whatever their heart desires. How is it possible that a created being could do against Hashem's will? Even though in truth a person is given the ability by Hashem to do against Hashem's will, so that there should be free choice, so that when we actually do good it means something, so we should choose good and receive eternal reward for choosing good. And like it says, see, I'm giving you today blessing or a curse, and you could choose Chaim, or you could choose Chas v'Shalom, the opposite of life. So the truth is, a nivra, because Hashem lets, a creation is able to do against what Hashem wants. But if he does against Hashem's will, he will not receive the good and that comes, the divine flow that comes in spiritual blessings, or the divine flow even more that comes in physical blessings. And this that does against Hashem's will doesn't come down to him good. And in fact, doing against Hashem's will brings chas v'shalom the attribute of judgment and suffering. Now let's say there's a person who does some good, and then he did a lot of bad. So Hashem says, look, he did some good, I'm going to pay him now, and then afterwards I don't have to give him a reward. So that's one way that he would receive a reward even if he did bad, but that's to his tremendous detriment. It's worth here mentioning that the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, brings out a whole talk about whether, a section of a talk, whether when we do a mitzvah, if the idea is we do a mitzvah and therefore Hashem sends a reward, or chas v'shalom, God forbid, we do a sin and therefore Hashem sends, God forbid, a punishment, or if the idea is that Hashem puts into creation that if the person does a mitzvah, that there's a reward inside of that mitzvah, and if a person does a sin, then there's a punishment within the sin itself. And it seems more like the second theory, that within the mitzvah itself, or chas v'shalom, within the sin itself, there's that thing. Obviously, Hashem still gives it, and Hashem still adds to the reward, or Hashem can mitigate the punishment, but there is that idea. We find also an example of this, that a person who did very bad things but had one merit was given a tremendous reward in order to get rid of the Hashem paid him off, basically. Hashem, okay, you did this thing, I'm paying you, that's it. And that person was Nebuchadnezzar, is the best example. It says Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar, the king in Babylon, destroyed the first temple, the first base of Mikdash. He walked back, he felt the divine presence, and he walked back 3 steps. Because he walked back 3 steps, he merited to be the king of the entire civilized world, for himself, for his children, and for himself, for his son, and for his son's son. 3 generations based on the 3 steps. And the Rebbe uses that to say that we can certainly ask for Moshiach, because every Jew and every person in this generation, really, you could say, has done a lot more good than walking back 3 steps. So the Jews who are part of the covenant of 613 mitzvahs, and really everyone else who's part of a command of 7 mitzvahs through which they could connect with Hashem, but especially us who follow this covenant could say to Hashem, look, I've done so much more for you than Nebuchadnezzar, now's already the time to bring the final redemption. Let's go back to the Tower of Babel. So Reb Chaim Vital asks a question on this pasuk. A person does a mitzvah, he gets a blessing. A person does a sin, he gets a curse. God forbid. Here, they're doing stuff against Hashem, and Hashem is saying, look, if I don't split them up, then they'll be able to do whatever they want. And what? And they're still going to receive blessings. So he asks, how is this possible? It seems that where it says that now whatever they want to do, they'll be able to do, it seems to be, if you read just the verse, it says they are one nation, they are one language, and therefore whatever they'll do, they'll be able to accomplish. And it seems like the fact that they're able to accomplish whatever they want to do is dependent on the fact that they're one nation and one language. How could this be? And in fact, when it says that Hashem wants to stop them, He says, come and let's mess up their language. Hashem causes all causations. Anything that's caused is, not only is he the cause of it, but he's the cause of stuff that happens way before. You find this many times throughout history. You find this in the Chumash. Just an example of how when they made a war against Midian, they took a number of animals, many types of animals, and also servants, and they consecrated exactly 1 in 500 to Hashem. The people went to serve the Kohanim, and the animals were used as sacrifices. And it was exactly 1 in 500, which means that the entire amount was able to be split up into 500 groups of 500. And for that to happen, then Hashem had to already make, the Rebbe points out, 40 years before, that the animals would only give birth to a certain amount of animals, and there was this exact number. So Hashem causes all causations. So how come Hashem had to split up their language, split them up from being one group in order to stop them? So obviously that's not what it means. It's not the simple meaning. And there are spiritual ideas behind this that will explain why the fact that they were together made them unstoppable within the realm of nature. Of course, Hashem could have changed it, but Hashem wanted to work through nature. So this seems to be the main reason. The main reason they were together was because they were one nation, one language. And when you split up this reason, you will get rid of the problem. When you stop them from being one nation and one language, automatically they won't succeed anymore. So the question is why, and why Hashem had to use, even through nature, to split them up in this way. And why just the fact that they were one would have made them, in the realm of, not just in nature, but in the order of things that Hashem established, made them sort of unstoppable. To understand all of this, first we have to understand the sin of the generation of the disbursement, the generation of the Tower of Babylon. And again, these are people who were later reincarnated into those who left Egypt. And again, these are the people who are around today, the people right before we leave the final exile and enter into the redemption, as everyone could see in many different ways, is something that is very much in the process. The Maamar is Abel Mishnah Sanhedrin Perek Yud Der Haflaga Ein Laim Chelik Lo'elam Haba Shneimar V'Yavetz Hashem Oisam Al Pnei Kol Haaretz U'Misham Hefitzam. It says in the pasuk that Hashem, it says in the Torah that Hashem spread them apart, blew them apart. And it says it twice. It says he spread them apart throughout the whole land, and from there he spread them apart. So Sanhedrin, the Mishnah in Sanhedrin learns out Vayafetz Ba'ilam Haza. The first time it says that he split them apart, it means from this world he dispersed them, and he split them away from there, meaning from the future world. So you have to understand what is the sin of the Der Haflaga so much that they don't have a chelik in Olam Haba. So if they're a reincarnation, how could we say that they don't have a chelik? Because on their own they don't have a portion of Olam Haba. If Hashem gave them a second chance and they came back and they rectify stuff, so based on this second chance they have, but not based on their first life. In the Torah, it says very clear, or it hints at least very clearly, what the sin of the generation of the flood was. It says that they went away from the proper path, which means that they veered into immorality. They didn't set up civilized families or lead civilized lives. That led also to that they were full of violence, they were full of thievery. It says very clearly basically what was going on. And it started with the disintegration of family life and going away from that. And it led to everything else. With the Tower of Babylon, though, it doesn't say at all really what they were doing, and we have to learn out. what their sin was. Hariksiv chetam. Over the flaga liksiv. Rak masher ratzu livnei ziru migdal. Just as they wanted to build a city and a tower, and then we have to learn out that they wanted to start up with Hashem. So if it just says they want to build a city and a tower, why does that prevent them from having a portion in the world to come? Also, if you look at the physical punishments, the flood was a much greater punishment, seemingly. Everything that there was wiped out. So, also the land, it says the first 3 tfachim, the first 3 hand breaths, talking about 8 inches apiece, about 4 inches, so you're talking about a total of 12 inches, were wiped out, because that's how much usually your first dig is. And Hashem wanted to totally purify the land, including the land that could be readily dug. Haflaga, but the sin, the punishment, of the haflaga, of the generation of the tower, the physical punishment was only that their language was mixed up, not that they were destroyed, and not that even 3 hand breaths into the earth had to be destroyed. Still, their sin is so much until they don't have a part in Olam Haba. And we have to understand what was this great sin. And to understand this, in the Medrash, so it's brought down in the Medrash. Dvarim echadim she'amru dvarim chadim al Hashem Elokeinu Hashem echad val echad hayavra, that they said things, sharp things against Hashem, our God. Hashem was one, and against echad hayavram, and also against Avram. Now Avram wasn't such a major person then, so it means that they said against what Avram was going to accomplish in the future, against setting up that Hashem should be prevalent in this world. It explains over there that first of all, it's talking about 2 echads. They said dvarim achadim, one thing, so it could mean chad, sharp, attacking things, or it could mean on 2 echads, against Hashem and against Avraham, who was a special person who stood up from all the people among generations and said, I'm going to change the world for Hashem, and I'm going to start the process of not leaving anyone behind. And if it was up to Avraham Avinu, nobody would have been left behind. Everyone would come close to Hashem, and it didn't matter to him where they were from or what nation they were from. He wanted everyone to know about Hashem and to serve Hashem. And he started the process that eventually will be accomplished. And so therefore they spoke against 2 echads. They spoke against Hashem, who was one, and Avraham, who was unique and special, and also wanted to bring out Hashem echad in the land. So there are 2 levels of one, even in holiness. It says that Hashem has 2 ways of thinking. Obviously, one's true, and one is how he relates to the creations. Hashem creates das elyon, the thought of the Creator. Hashem is higher than both of these, but he comes down into both of these. And the Torah brings the 2 opinions together. So the thought of the Creator, das tachten, and the thought of the created. What does that mean? Das elyon hu ech shekula kamek lechashiv, or l'mayla yesha amiti. Das elyon, the thought of the Creator, the thought of above, is that everything is nothing, is as if it's nothing compared to him, which is truly the way it is. And above is the true yesh, is the true being. And anything that's below that, anything in the physical world or in the lower spiritual worlds, the lower one goes, the less important it is, and the less relevant it is in its total irrelevance. And das tachten is that there is a physical being, and that's the purpose of all of creation, and at the same, which is true, but at the same time, it is nullified to the creator who is not perceived, and we call him Hein, in that he's not perceived, that he transcends any kind of way that we would want to try to explain him, any attribute we want to put into him. All we know about Hashem is that he's the essence of goodness, and that he's all powerful, and we can't describe him, because if you say that he's unlimited wisdom, he created the whole concept of wisdom. Wisdom is one of the manifestations with which he comes out in the world, but the whole concept of wisdom is something that he created. He transcends everything. You see that, by the way, in the Ten Commandments. When Hashem came out on Mount Sinai, he showed this level. And one way he showed it was that Shomer v'Zocher b'dibur echad. Shomer and Zocher were said as one. In Shmos, in Exodus, where it talks about the giving of the Ten Commandments, it says, Zocher es Yom Shabbos, remember the day of Shabbos. In Dvarim, in Deuteronomy, where it rehashes the giving of the commandments, it says, Shomer, guard the day of Shabbos. And we have brought down that Zocher v'Shomer b'dibur echad, that Zocher and Shomer were said as one saying. So people think that means that Hashem said Zocher and Shomer at the exact same time. That itself would be a miracle, but that's not true. Hashem said one word, and that word was Zocher, and that word was Shomer. How's that even possible? In our realm of understanding, it's not. So Hashem showed that he transcends all realms of understandings. And that was one minor example of it that was brought out, but it was very clear that that's what Hashem was showing. And there were feelings of that level too, where Hashem transcends everything then. Like it says that the hosts of heaven bow down to you. So even down here in Das Tachtein, when we say that the created being is something, we recognize that yes, it's something, but it's something that should be nullified, given over to Hashem. And these two opinions as to whether the down here, whatever's lower, is considered nothing, or whether what's low is here and is real, but it should be bottled, it should be nullified to the levels that are not perceived and not understood. Both of these opinions, one is called Yechudei Elah and one is called Yechudei Tata. Yechudei Elah, Hashem Echad. So Zeu Inyan Hashem Echad, which is Yechudei Elah, Hashem is Yechudei Tata. And we have these opinions when we say, both of these opinions when we say the Shema. We say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We're saying that Hashem is our God and Hashem is one. And there's many explanations on this verse. One simple meaning is, Hear Yisrael. This was the people who accepted the Torah, the Jewish people. Hashem is our God, and in the end, He will be God of all the nations. But it was saying on a deeper level. And what we're supposed to say is that Hashem is our God, but Hashem is really the one who creates absolutely everything and is the life force for everything. And everything has a reason that if we would know, we'd see the greatness of it. But everything is part of this oneness. In other words, physicality cannot be created by itself, and physicality doesn't come from the spiritual either. It comes from a level that transcends spiritual, because spiritual cannot create physical. So Hashem is higher than spiritual or physical, and Hashem is the one making every physical thing, is the one who's making in all its details. For a human being to be able to move their hand, it takes millions of different simultaneous things working together. Whether it's the entire nervous system, whether it's for everything, for a human body to function, it takes millions of different intricate happenings that have to work in tandem at once. But so too all of creation is being constantly created and fed and led by Hashem, and is really just a manifestation of Hashem, because it comes from nothing. It comes from a level that's not perceived at all, and anything that comes from a level that's not perceived at all has to be constantly recreated. The Rebbe Rashab in later Maamar explains this. He says we talk, and before there's no words, and then when we talk there are words. And if we want the words to go away, all we have to do is stop talking, because by talking we're creating the word, so to speak. They're coming out of nowhere, and therefore, as soon as we stop, they stop. There's no power of movement in a rock. The power of movement that a rock has is if a person throws the rock, it moves. So it's the power of movement coming from the person into the rock. Since there's no power of movement in the rock itself, the moment the person stops throwing the rock stops moving. He doesn't have to stop the flow of motion. He just has to stop throwing the rock. And then this power goes away automatically. So too with creation, Hashem has to constantly recreate and bring himself into creation every second. And he's creating everything around the person for the person's ultimate goodness and ultimate benefit, and to bring the person up. And that's Yichudei Ilah, that everything's really part of Hashem. Now we could recognize that, but when the person's leading his daily life, he's not thinking of that usually every second, except for some very, very great neshamis. So there's something called Yichudei Tata, which means even though the truth is with Yichudei Ilah, but there's Yichudei Tata, which means I'm here, I'm found in the world. What the world is, I don't have to worry about right now, but what I do have to worry about is to bring godliness out into the world, and that's my mission. And a person has to do it through Torah and mitzvahs, and a person also has to do it in their daily life. And that is the root of the two echods, the two levels of godliness, which are both special and unique. And specifically, Echadim means that the Das Elyon should come down into Das Tachtein. That even though the person says, yes, I'm in the world, but he should recognize and he should be animated by the fact that the truth is with Das Elyon, that really everything is part of Hashem. And in fact, when we say Shema, we have to look at that last word, Echad, and say that Hashem is one in the seven heavens and the earth and the four corners of the universe. Echad, being made up of the three letters Echad, which is the first letter, which in Hebrew is also the number 1, which means Hashem. Ches, being the second letter, is the 8th letter, it's 8, which means the seven heavens and the earth. And Daled is forming the four corners of the world. What does it mean, the four corners of the world? Aside from meaning the poles, even there are psukim that talk about a kadur haaretz, a ball, a sphere-shaped thing, and Maimonides writes before any of the scientists were onto it about how the world is sphere-shaped and how there are different levels of stratosphere. But it means, aside from the physical poles of the world, and it also factors in east and west, it means every aspect of the world, the four spiritual aspects. And there are many different Maamorim which explain how south is connected with chesed, kindness, and north is connected with severity. And like it says that that one is my beloved, that the person should have this level of oneness with him. And this is that he should have in his heart, inside of him, Hashem's oneness. That a person shouldn't just recognize that Hashem is one, but this should be in his heart. When he says here, Yisrael, Hashem is one, that he should recognize that everything in the world is being constantly made by Hashem, and all the good that's being given him is constantly made by Hashem. But not just that, that he's the source of everything good, and everything else is just something that comes out of him, and is it's a drop of a drop of a drop, and he should want the main thing, which is Hashem, who creates everything, and the essence of Hashem, which transcends everything. And not just that he should know about it, but that he should really put his mind to it, really thinking about it, and looking in the greatness and the beauty of the king. What does it mean histaklus, looking? It means really looking into the greatness of Hashem in all its details, as much as a person can contemplate, until it's no longer just in his head, but it comes into his heart, that he recognizes that this is the truth, that Hashem really is everything. Inside of that it should come into the person in truth and fill him up, that Hashem really is everything. And from that he'll come to loving Hashem with all of his being, and giving over his soul completely, which also means giving over his soul in every aspect of life. And we're going to leave off now. We did the first paragraph as well as we're well into the second paragraph, and look forward to picking up over the coming days until we finish off this Maamar Be'ezus Hashem. Thank you very much.